Okay, it's now 5 o'clock. Mr. McLean, are you ready to go on the record?
Yes, Your Honor. We are on the record.
Thank you. I call case 22E0204, petition of Heritage Wind LLC for a certificate of public convenience and necessity pursuant to Public Service Law Section 68 and for an order granting lightened regulation. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Ashley Moreno, and I'm an administrative law judge with the Department of Public Service and have been assigned to preside over this public statement hearing. Joining me this afternoon are Joseph White, Esmond Brown Anderson, and Maureen Jukes from the Department's Office of Consumer Services, who will be providing technical and operational assistance. This public statement hearing was noticed on June 22nd, 2022. This hearing is intended to allow public comment on a petition filed by Heritage Wind LLC on April 14th, 2022, seeking a certificate of public convenience and necessity pursuant to Section 68 of the Public Service Law, as well as a lightened regulatory regime from the Public Service Commission. The New York State Public Service Commission consists of 7 members, Chairperson Rory Christian, and Commissioners Diane Berman, James Alisi, Tracy Edwards, John Howard, David Valesky, and John Maggiore. And I believe Commissioner Maggiore has just joined us for today's hearing. Commissioner, would you care to address the participants?
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here today. I am here to listen. You're not going to hear from me after I speak right now. But as a commissioner, I do view hearing directly from people who participate in public statement hearings to be a valuable way of understanding how items that come before the Public Service Commission affect real people's lives. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you today, and thank you for participating remotely on a Thursday afternoon. Judge, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say hello. And that's all I'm going to say, all you're going to hear from me today. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Okay, before I open up the hearing for public comment, I will provide an overview of the procedural background of this case, and also then I will go over the process for the commenting today. On January 13th, 2022, the New York State Office of Renewable Energy Siting issued a permit to Heritage Wind authorizing the construction of a wind facility, the Heritage Wind Project, in the town of Berry in Orleans County. Heritage Wind must also obtain a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, or a CPCN, from the Public Service Commission to proceed with construction. Heritage Wind filed a petition with the Commission seeking the CPCN on April 14th, 2022, and today's hearing is being held to receive public comment on whether the Commission should grant a CPCN and whether the Commission should find that the Heritage Wind Project as a wholesale generator should be entitled to a lightened regulatory regime. The Commission's review under Public Service Law Section 68 will not duplicate or supplant the determinations already made by the Office of Renewable Energy Siting. Construction of the project would be subject to the terms and conditions of the siting permit issued by the New York State Office of Renewable Energy Siting. So now I'll just describe a little bit about what our process will be for commenting today. So just briefly, first, today's hearing is not an evidentiary hearing or a question and answer session, but really it's an opportunity for members of the public to offer comments on the petition that was filed by Heritage Wind. Statements today will become part of the administrative record in this proceeding. We have a court reporter who's on the line today who will be preparing a transcript of the hearing, which will be publicly available on the Department of Public Service website. Today's hearing is also not the only opportunity for public comment. If you did not register to speak today, but you would nonetheless like your views to be considered by the Commission, you can submit comments on the Department's website, by email or regular mail, or by phone. All comments will be given equal consideration regardless of how they are submitted. Comments were requested in the notice by tomorrow, July 15th, 2022, but they will be considered throughout the pendency of the case. They come in thereafter. As today's hearing is being held virtually, we have some participants who might be participating electronically and some telephonically. In either case, please make sure that you are using only one audio input and one audio output at your end. Otherwise, we might experience some problems with feedback when you're speaking. I will call the individuals who have registered to speak one by one. If someone is not available when I call them, I will move on to the next person, and I will circle back at the end to see whether that person has joined us and is available for their comment. For people who are participating electronically, we will unmute your line after we call your name. You should hear a tone and see that the microphone icon on your screen is no longer red. Please remember that if you've muted your line, that you'll also have to unmute that before you begin to speak. For telephone participants, when I call your name, I will ask that you press *3 on your phone so that we can recognize you and unmute your line. It might take us just a moment to do this, so please just be patient and do not begin speaking until you've heard a beep or have been notified that your line is unmuted. Please be reminded again that if you've also muted your own line, you'll have to make sure that that is unmuted as well. After you provide your statement, I may ask you to press *3 again so that we can more easily locate our next phone participant. So when your line is unmuted, please state your name, and if you're speaking on behalf of an organization, the name of that organization. Once I confirm that we can hear you, you can go ahead and proceed to make your comments. Just also one more reminder, please try to speak slowly and clearly so that our court reporter can accurately capture your statement for the record. And Mr. McLean, if at any time you can't hear a participant, please feel free to interrupt and let us know, because we want to make sure we have an accurate record of their statement. So
Sounds
with
good,
that,
thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will begin to take statements, and our first speaker is Mckenna, and I believe that is a call-in user. So if you could please press *3 on your phone, that will allow us to find you and unmute your line. Mckenna? Okay, I see a hand raised. And it looks like your line has been unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, bear with me for just 1 second, please.
Of course. And just before you make your statement, could you just, again, state your name and spell it for our court reporter, and then please feel free to proceed.
Okay. All right. Again, my name is Iva, I-V-A, Mckenna, M-C-K-E-N-N-A.
Okay, thank you.
And, okay. And I am just calling because I'm concerned with the quality of character or fitness as a business that Apex Clean Energy, the sole proprietor of Heritage Wind, has demonstrated that they don't have. And it can be seen by the comments and proceedings, including in Gallo Island, where the developer was found to have disrupted an eagle's nest and subsequently withdrew their application. The Lighthouse Wind Project, where there has been fierce opposition from the beginning in Orleans County. They say that they've withdrawn their application, and yet there is, because of fierce opposition from the beginning, but the developer still hasn't withdrawn from the community, despite stating that they don't intend to move forward with the project, which kind of makes me feel like, okay, are they being truthful, or are they just wasting taxpayers' money? Why are they still there? Research also shows lawsuits in other states by leaseholders in regard to construction, the construction phase, and more. And I have, there are articles which are referenced, and I can give you the link if you want me to on that. Then also in San Patricio, there was a fire in Texas that left the local residents without anyone to contact, and the owner was Apex Clean Energy. In February of 2020, construction workers were saying they broke their promise to hire local. That was in the Morning Sun, written by Eric Barron. Unionized construction workers have accused Apex Clean Energy of being breaking a promise to hire local workers, and that's part of the incentive that they use to to come into an area such as ours, is to say, oh well, we're going to hire a certain number of people, and yet when you go to the places, there's cars from all different states. It doesn't seem like there's many people at all from the local area. So anyway, another is in November of 2019, the Roanoke Times in Virginia said that the latest proposal by Apex Clean Energy exceeds the maximum turbine height of 550 feet approved nearly 3 years ago and would require an amended permit from the county's Board of Supervisors. At 550 feet, the turbines would be about as tall as the Washington Monument. At 680 feet, they'd be closer to a 50-story skyscraper. And I guess that's something that it seems that they come in a way that they try to throw their money around and make people turn heads or do things that they wouldn't normally do, with promises that seem to not be kept. As far as one of the other things is they maintain that there will be no change in property value. In our area, we would have 6 of the wind turbines, almost 600 feet tall, within 1 mile of our home. And the fact that they try to maintain that there would be no effect on our property value or anyone else's property value in this area, I think is considerably a falsehood. And as I already mentioned, the Eagle's Nest on Gulu Island in Lake Ontario has drawn attention to the safety of birds and accusations of cover-up. And the judge has questioned the integrity of one of the country's largest wind farm developers, which would be Apex Clean Energy. Just very, very concerned for their lack of honesty or integrity, and it seems like they do whatever they can to just benefit themselves and not to benefit the area, as they maintain that they're going to. Even the roads, how much that would be affected in our area or any area, especially this is a small town. It definitely would have a dramatic effect on the roads, dramatic effect on the skyline in this small rural community, and their thought that they're not going to affect things in a negative way is something we feel is just completely undocumented and untrue.
Okay.
Thank you. And
thank you very much for your comment. We appreciate it. And if I could ask you to please press *3 again, that'll help us find our next participant. Thank you. And our next speaker will be George Mckenna. And if you've called in, if you could please press *3 on your phone. That'll help us locate you. George Mckenna, if you're on the line, if you could please press *3.
No raised hand, Your Honor.
Okay, we will circle back. Our next speaker then will be Carrie Richardson. And again, if you've called in, if you could please press *3 on your phone. Okay. And it looks like you're unmuted.
Hello. I just wanted to let you know that I've had some challenges before I make my formal statement in logging in and getting. I wanted to join on the computer and tried to do that, and ended up that my computer is not new enough or not upgraded enough, and so WebEx denied. And then I tried to download the app and get on that way, and I don't have a username for WebEx, and so it wouldn't allow me to get on that way. So I am on the phone, but maybe that's a similar problem to what George Mckenna is facing. So maybe if we could circle back to him at the end of the callers, that would be helpful.
Yes, we will. Sorry for your inconvenience, but we're glad that you could join us. If you could please just spell your name for our court reporter and then go ahead and make your statement.
Absolutely. My name is Carrie Richardson, K-E-R-R-I, Richardson, R-I-C-H-A-R-D-S-O-N.
Thank you.
All right, so is it okay for me to start?
Yes, please do. Thank you.
When I was looking into what the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity pursuant to Public Service Law, Section 68, and for an order granting lightened regulations, what that actually entailed and what was specifically being looked at, one of the things that came up was that in this process, you're looking at proof of economic concerns for this project by the petitioner based on, and that they are a company that is able to financially move forward with such a project. I wanted to draw the attention to statements that were made in the 94C process. I understand that it's not, you're not going to be redundant in what you're reviewing. However, the statements that were made in that, I think, brings a point of economic concern, and specifically based on the potential removal of 6 of the turbines in this project. The decision of executive director that was issued on the January 13th by Hutan Movani, hopefully I pronounced that right, stated, quote, on that point, applicant has argued that removal of the 6 turbines is not practicable. Applicant asserted that removal of the 6 turbines is likely to make the project uneconomical and unfinanceable, and that redesigning the facility at this late stage is not practicable. Removal, end quote. Removal of the 6 turbines as recommended by Executive Director Movani would change this project from a 184.8 megawatt project to a 151.2 megawatt project, and that's an 18% reduction in the nameplate capacity of this project. Assuming that other turbines are not removed or run into other challenges when the applicant seeks to fulfill other federal requirements, like going through and looking at the groundwater in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, reviewing other aspects of this project that don't fall under this, but just that the economics of this project really seem to be in question even by the developer themselves. And I know that it was stated by the developer that they do plan on completely removing those 6 turbines and adding 4 additional, and that they said that these amendments would have been posted in June, and that has not occurred yet. And that was shared at the June 2022 Town of Barre Town Board meeting. However, no official submissions or documentations have been submitted that the public is aware of. According to the 16 NY-CCR 21.3, the hearing should contain the following information, and in regards to this process. Based on the information presented above, I request that the hearing take place and information be shared both at the 184.8 megawatt nameplate capacity and at the 151.2 megawatt. And that section E says estimated revenues to be derived from operations covered by the petition and the estimated expenses of such operations. Each should be completed and in detail for each of the first 3 years of service. Also, estimates made from an actual survey of the territory of the number of prospective customers at the end of the first, second, third years of service, showing for each state the number of prospective customers in the residential, commercial, and industrial classes of service. So that's what the requirement states, and I don't know if any of that information is made public, but I do have concerns, as the developer stated, they have concerns that this project wouldn't be financially feasible and a wise investment for New York State or for NYSERDA to put funds for, which leads me to my next topic, in that the New York State Independent Operating System, their 2019 Power Trends report identifies that it is not actually in public interest or public need to move forward with this project in particular. And even this is from page 44 of the report, this is a quote, even with the Western New York and AC transmission projects already selected by the New York State Independent System, NYSO, congestion on the system will persist, complicating the state's ability to meet its renewable energy goals. The inability of the transmission system to deliver increasing amounts of renewable supply from upstate New York to downstate consumers jeopardizes achieving the state's public policy goals. And according to 16 NYCCR 21.3, the following needs to be addressed in the hearing where similar services are being rendered in all or part of the area proposed to be served, the public need for the proposed service, including but not limited to, 1, the adequacy of the existing services to meet the reasonable needs of the public in the territory involved. So we're looking at the A through E load zones, and I'm telling you that right now we're operating at over 92%, and this is from NYSO's more current Power Trends report, that we're already operating 92% carbon emissions free in the upstate, those load zones. Significant portion of that is due to Niagara Falls, which we are very close to, and other sources of renewable energy that are already on the grid. By approving this certificate, we are adding to this, adding more electricity, more costs, higher cost electricity to an already full marketplace with diversity already in there. And so it's not actually to the benefit of New York State residents or to the benefits of the climate goals that New York State has. In its most, this is another quote, this is from page 45 of the NYSO Power Trend report. In its most recent awards of REC contracts announced in January of 2019, NYSERDA noted that it was supporting 20 large-scale renewable projects representing 1,654 megawatts of installed capacity. 18 or 93% of the awarded capacity will be located upstate in load zones A through E, where clean energy resources are already abundant and access to load centers in southeastern New York is heavily constrained. Absent investment to expand the transfer of capability of the bulk power system investment and renewables in upstate load zones runs the risk of bringing diminishing returns in terms of progress towards both renewable energy production and carbon dioxide emission reduction goals. End quote. Heritage Wind is one of the 18 renewable projects that was awarded an RCE from NYSERDA in that January 2019 awards, obviously located in that A through E load zones. So, quote, again from the NYSO Power Trend report, page 45, based on the NYSO operating experience, there are already high levels of wind curtailment in northern New York. Analysis performed by the New York State Independent System Operations, I think, in 2018 indicates that further wind development upstate could lead to increased levels of wind curtailment without additional transmission upgrades, including targeted enhancements to certain local transmission networks. So to me, all of that seems like the public need is not there. There isn't a necessity, so this certificate should not be granted because this is only will cost the New York State electric bill payers and the residents of our community more than what it would benefit. And then the second thing is the ability and willingness of the present operators to provide such reasonably adequate service. And again, according to the 2021 New York State Independent Operating System Power Trends Report, the A through E load zones is already operating at 92% carbon emissions and free energy sources. There is no need for additional electricity generation, and that has been documented or projected for our area. And the infrastructure to move the carbon emission free electricity from the A through E load zones to downstate where the electricity is needed is currently not available. So I think that the cost of this project to our community and the impacts that this project will have based on all of the different components that go with an industrial 50-story, 30 plus of them in our community that is rural. We are flat. We are not at a high elevation that will be able to be seen and will drastically change our community is significant. The other component is that there is another project that is being proposed that is currently in the 94C process, the Hemlock Ridge project, which is a 200 megawatt solar project. And between the two of these, we're looking at almost 25% of our rural 55 square mile town being consumed by industrial energy projects. I firmly believe that the need and necessity for this project is not present, and that the financial capabilities of the developer have not been demonstrated. And we don't know what the project actually is going to look like based on what was shared at the June 2022 town board meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And if I could ask you to please press *3 again on your phone, that'll help us locate our next caller. Thank you. Our next speaker is Cindy Burnside. And I believe your line is now unmuted.
Good evening. My name is Cindy, C-I-N-D-Y, Burnside, B as in boy, U, R as in Robert, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, I, D as in David, E. I am a resident of the town of Barre. As a resident of the town of Barre, I am opposed to the Heritage Wind project. As a resident, I request that the certificate of public convenience and necessity, as well as authorization for Heritage Wind LLC to own and operate a wind facility in the town of Barre, be denied. Adding another large-scale project to our small county appears to go against the New York State Farmland Protection Program. The program was designed in 1992 to protect our vital farmland and to protect our farmers from being pressured or lured into selling their farmland and leaving the farming industry. As is, there are already solar projects in process that will cover at least 1,300 acres in our area. Our county also has other large solar facilities. We also have the Robert Moses Niagara Falls Power Plant to thank for an overabundance of electricity. A wind facility in this area is just unnecessary and unwanted. The request to operate a wind facility in the town of Barre has never been put to an official vote by those homeowners that reside in the town, even though the majority would like to have an official vote. The homeowners that live here are the only ones that would be affected by such a project, not the millionaires that own land here and live in Arizona. However, on 3 different occasions, surveys were mailed out by 3 different entities. In each of the surveys, never had there been a majority in the town that supported the proposed project. In 2018, 2 different times by 2 different entities, surveys were mailed. And in both of these instances, the majority was not in favor of the proposed project. Again, in 2020, a private company conducted a survey. 258 households responded. 70% of them were totally opposed to the proposed project. This proposed project is not in public demand in this town. As a resident, I request that the order providing for lightened regulation as a wholesale generator, as well as request for special treatment for expedited treatment of its petition, be denied. There are clear-cut rules to be followed, and Heritage Wind LLC should not be allowed to deviate from those rules for their convenience and their agenda. Their petition should not be allowed to be swiftly pushed through. To do so removes the due diligence that such a project requires. Lightened regulations could put the public, our land, and our wildlife at risk now and in the future to come. Lastly, 6 turbines have been deemed to be removed, but 4 are being replaced. That means 2 are missing and are probably needed to be economical. Borrego, B-O-R-R-E-G-O, Solar System, Inc., is seeking a special use permit from the town of Shelby. Shelby borders our town. Borrego is seeking to install 2 turbines. These 2 turbines would be a 10 megawatts project. Residents in the town of Shelby voiced their opposition and concerns to this small proposed project. One resident voiced concern and eyebrows were raised that Borrego could sell the project off to a different developer or operator. As a resident of the town of Barry, I question whether that developer or operator could be Heritage Wind or one of their successors in the future. Is this small proposed project in Shelby designed to secretly fly under the radar of ORES, as well as you, in order for Heritage Wind to quietly replace turbines that were ordered by ORES to be removed or moved? A project of 10 megawatts does not need to go through the 94C process because it is under the 25 megawatt minimum and would not need a siting permit from ORES. If this assumption is true, this sets a very dangerous precedent. I respectfully request that this be fully investigated, leaving no stone unturned, and if a quote-unquote backdoor arrangement has been made between Borrego Solar System, Inc. and Heritage Wind LLC or their affiliates, that any certificates of orders and the project be immediately denied and let the law take its course and may it prevail. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Gary Palmer. And if you have joined us by phone, if you could press *3 so that we can identify you and unmute your line. Gary Palmer.
I don't see Gary there, and I don't see a raised hand, Your Honor.
Okay, well, we will circle back to George Mckenna. If you've joined us by phone, if you could press *3 on your phone so that we can identify you. George Mckenna. Okay, and we'll try one more time for Gary Palmer. And again, if you've called in, if you could please press *3. Okay, Mr. Wade, it looks like we've got a couple of people now with raised hands. Okay, your line has been unmuted.
This is Gary Palmer.
Hi, Mr. Palmer. Could you please just spell your name for the court reporter, and then feel free to start with your statement, sir.
Garypalmer. I also am a resident of Berry Center. I would like to point out on the fact of public need. I don't feel that there is a public need. There are 3 hydroelectric dams in the immediate area. None of them run at full capacity, and the grid with those not running at capacity doesn't have enough to support the extra energy. So putting in the wind turbine project is going to be redundant. It's their power. If they can't get it onto the grid when the wind is blowing, there's no need for it. So these turbines will sit idle. These turbines, they are backdoor funded through the government, which is taxpayer money. Right now, the taxpayers of the United States don't need the extra burden of taxes to run these type of projects that may or may not be needed. Like I said, New York, Western New York has plenty of green energy already here. So, in our part of the state, we don't need to have more of it that is just going to sit fallow by the wayside. The next problem is the grid itself. The grid is old. It can't take the energy needed. Therefore, the grid needs to be updated. Nobody builds the second story of a house without building the foundation first. The grid is the foundation of the electricity program in New York State. Until that grid is brought up to speed to handle all the electric that's needed, having these industrial turbines in a rural community that provides food for America is kind of redundant. Which leads to the next fact: what studies have been done comparing what power may or may not be supplied versus cropland lost, habitat lost, such as forests, which take care of carbon dioxide quite well by Mother Nature. What is the long-term effect of that going to be? I have not seen any studies one way or the other. There's reports out where colleges that have gone totally green have had rolling brownouts because their green energy cannot supply the power that they need for colleges. Colleges are much smaller than, our rural communities. They're much smaller than New York City. So how is green energy from wind turbines or solar panels going to provide steady power? Rolling brownouts, California suffers for them all the time. They have a huge percentage of their electric grid is supplied by green energy, and they have trouble all the time. Another disturbing aspect is New York State sells energy credits to other states for green credits. This is troubling. We know that New Hampshire has bought these credits so that they can look greener than they truly are. To me, it's kind of a backdoor scam where a wind farm or a solar farm is more valuable for its green credit for the government to get off their back than to actually produce anything. Another point is in the pilot agreements, host community agreements, they pay more out per megawatt than they will ever get when they sell it. How do you run a business where you're paying out more than what you're bringing in? That's not the way businesses are run, which leads back to, they're backdoor funded by the government. The government doesn't make money, takes money from Americans through taxes and then gives to these projects that may or may not be effective. From what we have seen so far, green energy is not real effective in New York State. It will not be effective. Wind energy will not be effective in Berry Center because of the low wind. they have redesigned and changed turbines to get special turbines that work well in low-level wind. But there's no real proof that those new generation turbines will in fact perform as said. Plus the fact they are super huge, tall, taller than any buildings in the Western New York area. They will be seen from all over. Some people may find them attractive, other people don't. Most people that I have spoke with find them unattractive and bothersome. And this is a real concern in a country where we have the right to pursuit of happiness and, you know, our own welfare. So I believe that, you know, serious debate needs to be done before public need is actually assigned for this project for this area. When it comes to light and restraints, they knew in the beginning what the law was, what they were going to be required to do. So why now should they have light and restraints when they're being backdoor funded by the government, which is the American people through taxpayer dollars? Why should they have lightened restrictions so that they can somehow make more money somewhere else? That pretty much wraps up what I've got, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. Okay, our next speaker, well, we have one hand up for a call-in user. Hopefully that's Mr. Mckenna. Could you unmute his line, please? Sir, your line has been unmuted.
Yes, this is George McKenna.
Hi, thank you. Could you just go ahead and spell your name for our court reporter and then go ahead and make your statement, sir?
Yes, my name is George, George McKenna, Mckenna. Before I get started, I just wanted to explain that I was on the phone when you first called me. On my phone, I pushed in the numbers and that you could not hear me. I pushed it in 3 times, so it's very frustrating. Drove to the neighbors and now you can hear me on her phone. So for some reason, my phone was not working. I kept it on and I tried to use it while I was here when you called again and came around and it still didn't work. So I'm not sure what.
Sorry to hear that, but I'm glad that we've got you now.
Right, not sure what the technology on that was, but so I am going to kind of probably hit on a few of the things that have already been said. So the fact that never in the town of Barry has there been a majority in favor of this project. Of the 3 surveys that were done, none of them showed a majority. In fact, one of them showed that in order for the wind energy for Heritage Wind to come in, our wind ordinance had to be changed, and 87% of the survey said do not change our wind ordinance. The fact that the wind ordinance still changed with that percentage against it, I feel goes to the fact that at the time, our zoning board, our planning board, and our town board had conflicted members on it that did not recuse themselves. At one point during the discussion of changing the wind ordinance, 5 out of the 7 board members were forced to recuse themselves, and were not happy about it. And that was the end of the process. So I don't think this was ever really handled correctly right from the beginning.
Excuse me for just one second. I apologize for interrupting. Mr. White, would you please be able to mute the line of call-in user 6? We're just getting a little background interference, and I want to make sure we can hear Mr. McKenna. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. McKenna. Please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. I apologize.
Okay. Thank you. The other thing that kind of leans towards the town not in favor of this is when the Heritage Wind came in with their proposal, their initial proposal was 47 turbines, and they could not get the people and the leaseholders to sign for 47. I mean, they got down to 33. Those were, a lot of leaseholders have multiple turbines. So it's not a majority of people, it's a minority that are in favor of this. The other thing I wanted to point out is the economics. I was looking to support this project and looking for the pros, and I could not find them. I know that when NYSERDA had a grant for the $198 million, I did some math, giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying that the turbines were working at 100% when we're lucky if they were produced at 30% of the capacity. I gave them the doubt of making the electric bill be with delivery and everything, which is about a third or 2/3 more than what it is. And even then, with 20 years, it came out 198 million, which would be a wash. It'd take 20 years to get that back. When I presented those facts to NYSERDA, all I got was, well, that's kind of a coincidence, and no answers. I spoke with Heritage Wind, and they never got back to me. They just said, well, we'll get back to you. No one has done the math or got back on the math of these projects. Is it going to be feasible? And if they do go in, and when they go in, the grid is buffered by Niagara Falls. So the way I understand it is, the electric comes in and Niagara Falls would have to slow down to allow it to come in and make the buffer. It's like we're paying for something twice, the consumer, which is not a good deal for the homeowners at this time. But if that does happen, I think we need to be accountable for them and say, this is how much this is actually producing minus what we're taking off from Niagara Falls. So this is actually what the project is costing us. And I think when those numbers are astronomical in expense only, the people will want answers. And it'll come back to whoever approved this project or put this project in. And I'm hoping or wishing that that would happen, or that we have a Ralph Nader out there that will make that happen and make this be aware. Again, it's the project for renewable energy needs to be more downstate. That's where the money needs to be spent. That's where it's needed. And if you try to put it in this area with the public not in favor of it, it's just poor judgment. I believe that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you very much for your statement. We appreciate it. And if I could ask you to please press *3 on your phone one more time, we'll open it up, and I want to make sure we can find any other call-in users. Thank you. Okay, that is the end of the list of individuals I have that have registered to speak this evening. I will open it up to anyone else who is on the line who would like to make a statement. So if you have joined us electronically, if you would press the raised hand button, that will allow us to recognize that you'd like to make a statement, and we can unmute your line. If you've called in and you would like to make a statement, you can press *3 on your phone, and we will recognize you and unmute your line. So again, if there's anyone else who's joined us this evening who would like to make a statement that did not register, you can let us know by using the raised hand function if you've joined electronically, or by pressing *3 if you've joined us by phone. And I see one call-in user, and your line has been unmuted. And you may have your own line muted, perhaps?
Hello? Yes.
Yes, now we can hear you. Could you please state your name and spell it for the record, and then please make your statement?
Yes, please. Again, this is Iva, I-V-A, Mckenna, M-C-K-E-N-N-A. And I was wondering if it was possible for me to add another comment or question.
We can take comments for sure. Go right ahead.
Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, so one of the things that I have never understood, having a small business and wishing desperately that our state took the taxpayers' monies as if it were their own and used it wisely, and we're very careful with the funds that we as taxpayers give to them. One of the things that I don't understand in regard to that as well is why everything is proprietary. If we try to find out what is the wind in Barre, oh no, you can't find that out. Any of the information that you feel is so important to be able to understand if a business is going to be able to make it without huge, without it being reasonable or without it being able to sustain itself, we can't find out that information. And so as is in the case here in Barre, with a low wind source, and we get the, we have people putting up Met towers to find out what the wind source is here, we still can't find out that information. It seems that if we were able to have that information be public and have it be that the marketplace could control itself and say, okay, is it worth putting up wind turbines in Barre? And if it is, here's how many people are willing to attempt to make a business at it and make money at it, and have it be that the marketplace controls it, and the marketplace also provides an opportunity for the rate to be lower because of that competition. This is something that I would love to see everywhere and anywhere in New York State run businesses, so that it's something that we can be as efficient and effective as possible. And that's pretty much all of my other comment was that I had to say. I just would like to have it be that the government is run like a business, so that the money, the finances are handled so that we can be as efficient and effective as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I will just open it up one more time, and if I could ask you, Ms. Mckenna, to please press *3 again, just so that we can identify any other person who might like to make a statement this evening. I'll just open it up one more time. If you've joined us electronically and would like to make a statement, please feel free to use the raise hand function, and if you've joined us by phone and would like to make a statement, you can press *3. And that will allow us to recognize you and unmute your line. Okay, Mr. White, I'm not seeing any additional hands raised. Is that your same understanding?
I concur, Your Honor. No raised hands.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your comments this evening. It's much appreciated. We will, as I mentioned earlier, you have an opportunity still to submit comments throughout the pendency of this proceeding. If you've joined us electronically, those other ways of submitting comments are on the screen, and I'll just mention to those of you who've joined us by phone what those are. It's also included on the notice of the public statement hearing. You can submit comments by mail or email. The email address for the secretary is secretary@dps.ny.gov. By phone at 1-800-335-2120, or electronically by visiting the Department of Public Service website and inputting the case number, which is 22E0204, and clicking on the post comments box on the screen. So I would just like to take another moment and thank Commissioner Maggiore for being present and listening this evening, as well as to Mr. White, Ms. Brown-Anderson, and Ms. Jukes for their operational and technical assistance. And with that, our public statement hearing is now concluded. As I indicated earlier and was in the notice, I will be holding a procedural conference shortly. We will be going off the record to allow anyone who does not wish to participate in the procedural conference to disconnect. And so with that, we will go off the record.
Thank you,
We are
Judge.
off the record, Your Honor.
Thank you. And I will just, again, pause so that any members of the public who've joined who do not intend to participate in the procedural conference may drop off. And Mr. White, if you would also be so kind as to disconnect the live stream.